Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but fire is so delightful. And
Good morning, everyone. Just kidding. Not quite yet, but I do feel after yesterday's crazy weather that it is maybe just a little bit Christmassy. And we know we're getting there. I don't do the countdown. I know we're not far. But I don't know about you guys, but time just flies. I can't believe it's already almost Christmas. Thanksgiving, of course, coming up next week. Anyway, I am Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Hope everybody's having a really good morning considering the world is falling down around us. But there's still very positive, of course, things going on. Lots of good to talk about as the bad. So anyway, I can't believe today's Friday. Been a long week. Very long week, been a long morning already. So I hope you guys are all going to have a fantastic weekend. Not sure what everyone has planned. For me personally, I'm going to be working. Nothing exciting on my end. But we have a big show again today. Nothing unusual with so much going on in the news. Colonel Joe Adams joining us today. He doesn't normally join us on Fridays. Usually it's Wednesdays. That's Colonel Joe Adams, of course, from the Washington Guard. And he's going to be joining us today because I want to get his take on what's quickly unfolding, all of the escalation that's taking place, not only between Russia and Ukraine, but the escalation that's taking place all over the world. You know, there's a lot of people throwing out that term World War III. And I'm going to read you some excerpts from a Politico ad later on. I was really surprised to hear this from Politico talking about we are in World War III. So that was, I think, an interesting take. I'm going to read what Zelensky has to say. We're going to talk about what Putin has to say. There's a lot going on. And as of this morning, just a short time ago, around 5 a.m., there was Russia launched an Iskander-M missile into Ukraine. So that's also kind of an escalation because that's, you know, they do launch missiles back and forth constantly, but not typically this Iskander missile. So we're going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams about what he thinks is going on. And I'm going to set the stage for that before he joins us, and then we'll get his take. Some of the other things I want to talk about is good morning, Eddie. A warning for women. There are some crazy things going on. We're always talking about making sure you're careful, really taking a good look around you, being observant. We're going to talk about a new sham taking place, a very dangerous one, by the way, for women if you're out there, especially around the holiday season. You always hear those things about the dollar in the door, or, you know, somebody, if you walk up towards your car and you find money on the ground, not to touch it. Something along those lines we will get to. Obviously, Russia being our main focus today because there is just incredibly so much going on. Right now, the U.S. Embassy in London is on lockdown after a suspicious package was found today. And good morning, Karen. And what I'm understanding about this is that local authorities detonated that package. We do not know at this point what was in the package, what led them to the package. We don't know. But the police did detonate it, and everyone in the area talking about the big boom that they heard, which frightened a lot of people. Of course, it was a planned, controlled detonation. And then shortly after that, they announced that the London airport, area of the London airport was closed, also over a security concern. I don't think any of that should surprise us because these types of things are going to escalate. There was a time, if you guys remember in the past, remember during, other wars in the past when we were over in Syria and Iraq, and, we would hear these things. Of course, during Desert Storm, people would attack our embassies all over the world. So we can expect that to happen. It's unfortunate. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Jay and Karen. And so that's something going on in London. I haven't heard anything more. I don't know what's going to unfold, but somebody obviously potentially wanting to attack the U.S. Embassy in London. Possibly. A lot of different reports on what might or might not be going on. Of course, Matt Gaetz, we're going to talk about him withdrawing from the Attorney General nomination. I'm surprised. I'm curious what you guys think. I made a post on Facebook asking people what they thought. I think I'm far more surprised than anyone else. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Thousands right now marching towards the United States coming up through our southern border ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. I think a lot of people think now is the time. If you're coming, come in now. So we're going to get to that here in a little bit. Again, Colonel Joe Adams joining us at 8 a.m. to get his take on the escalation that's taking place over between Russia and Ukraine. We're going to talk about a new bill that is being introduced. Let's hope with of course Republicans controlling the House, the Senate, and of course the presidency, that we get this bill to pass. It's going to make sure that these crazy hedge funds, these big companies, aren't purchasing American homes, and also it will allow or force I'm going to have one of those Fridays, the sale of the homes they already have in their possession. So we're going to get into that. Netanyahu, a lot of different companies saying they're going to honor the arrest warrant against Netanyahu, of course, by the International Criminal Courts. So we'll see about not the US, but a lot of other countries are jumping in on that. Good morning, Karen. So it's again Friday. I can't believe it's Friday. You know what's so funny is a lot of things are going to be changing. I'm getting ready to change my background. So you guys are going to see that. I had my little Trump flag up. I've had the Gadsden flag up. I've had a couple different things up there. But, I want to try to streamline a little bit, get something a little prettier than my flag. So that's something I'm going to be working on. Still trying to figure out about a start time for the show because, even this morning I woke up at 3:30 a.m., but there's so much that goes on overnight, that I have to take notes and make sure I have everything lined out so I can give you guys the latest news. But it's still a lot to do. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to put together, to load the videos, get the show set up, get everything done, get it on the right channels. And then I want to start adding in Rumble, Spotify, and some other channels. And all of that takes time. And it's unfortunate, but you really can't do it all the night before because I don't have the news until in the morning. So that makes things a little bit tough. And so therefore, I'm still contemplating a start time because even today, when I thought I'm for sure going to be on at 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. sharp, I'm going to be on time. Nope, not so much. Never happens. I don't know why I keep tripping over my camera, then I have to reset it. So never works on time. So I'm either contemplating, I know it's a very odd time to start at 7:30. I'm either thinking of doing the show from 7:30 to 9:30 or from 8 to 10. 7 a.m. is just not working out, unfortunately. Good morning, Sharon. Sharon, God, see what I mean? I'm having one of those Fridays. Sherry, it's been quite the morning. I have a lot on my mind. There's so much going on in the world. I'm not even really sure where to start. I'm very fearful for what is about to take place. No question about it. And I don't want to be fear mongering or causing other people anxiety. Take anything, of course, with a grain of salt because a lot has to happen. There's a lot of things playing out in the world right now that we don't have a full grasp on. Every day things change. And I think we're all just sitting and hoping and praying that Putin sits back, has patience, and doesn't take the bait. Because we know that the NATO countries, including the United States, we're all baiting him into a potential start of World War III, because of course we know that we don't have to inaugurate Donald Trump. Karen, 7:30 to 9:30. Karen, that's probably going to be the winning time frame because I hate to start at 8 a.m. because that just pushes my whole day back. I can't be ready at 7 a.m. So if it's very unconventional to start a show, on the half hour, but it's a podcast. I mean, I could, originally when I was going to do this podcast, I was going to start at midnight because midnight is the only time I'm not working. I work from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed. And so I have to take a little break to do the show. And I thought, you know what? I'm not ever working at midnight. Usually I work nights. So I'm usually home from work around 10:30, 11 p.m. And then I'm thinking that will give me time to come home and get ready and do a show at midnight and then try to get to bed, at a certain time so I can be back up early in the morning to go to work. So I don't know what to do, but we will work it out one way or the other. Monica, I also like 7:30. Meetings start at 9. Oh, okay. Your meetings start at 9. 7:30 will probably be the time. 7 a.m. is too early. 8 o'clock, I feel like it's too late. So how about we just set it at 7:30? We'll just take care of the matter now since that seems to work out. And half the time I'm not ready till 7:30 anyway. But I am looking forward to talking to Colonel Joe Adams today. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. Good morning, Dottie. Uh, because things are escalating very quickly over in Russia. And I'm not really sure exactly what's going to happen next. Yesterday, when I came in the show, I was talking about the historical fact that Russia launched this ICBM into Ukraine, into the Dnipro region. And then we find out later it was not the ICBM we thought, but what they actually launched, the Iskander, I think that's how you say it. I'm not really good at pronouncing Russian terms, but we know well that they launched the Iskander this morning. The one they launched yesterday, sorry, that's the Oreshnik. Oreshnik, I'm probably not saying that right. And that is a new medium range missile. The problem is that is actually very much more serious than what we originally thought with the ICBM, the long range missile. Even though the Oreshnik is a medium range missile, it has better capabilities than the long range missile, and it also doesn't violate any treaties or any other wartime situations by launching a medium range missile. So Putin didn't do anything illegal. He's not going to get in any trouble for doing it. He might get a lot of backlash, but this Oreshnik missile that was launched, it is nuclear capable. There is absolutely no reason to use that particular missile unless you are in a wartime situation where you are launching nuclear weapons, because it does carry the capability of carrying 6 warheads, which is what it did yesterday. That's when we saw the missile come into the Dnipro region. We saw the different explosions. And at that time, that's why they thought it was a long range missile, because in the long range missile, when it reaches its target, it separates, the warhead separates, but that's one warhead that separates. In this case, it holds up from 3 to 6 warheads. So you could launch it with 3, you could launch it with 6. In this case, they did launch it with 6 warheads. And that's why you see them land in different areas. It's really amazing technology. And that's what makes it so scary, because what Russia also informed us, this is a brand new missile system in Russia. And allegedly, there is nothing else in the world that compares to this system. And it cannot be detected by radar. Allegedly, that's what they're telling us. It cannot be detected by radar. No country in the world can detect this Iskander missile by radar. And not only that, but we don't have any way to stop it. We don't have any defense system that can target this missile. So therefore, if Russia launches another one of these missiles towards, let's say, Finland or Sweden or Poland, they've threatened to launch it towards Poland, we wouldn't know. I mean, we know that they've launched something. We have a general idea when it's coming, but we can't track it by radar. That makes it very dangerous. And again, it is a nuclear capable missile. He has a lot of other missiles in his arsenal. He didn't need to launch this one. This was definitely a warning to say, hey, look what I have. I have a medium range missile that is very, very much like an ICBM, because an ICBM has a maximum distance of about 5,500 kilometers. Well, this Oreshnik, it has a maximum distance of 5,000 kilometers. So not that much different. It travels at a rate of Mach 10. So that's very fast. And as a matter of fact, I was reading some statistics on it, where this particular missile, the Oreshnik, it can reach the UK in 19 minutes, Belgium in 14 minutes, Germany in 11 minutes, and Poland in 8 minutes. That's pretty darn quick. And so that's something to think about. And I think that that's a huge warning to not only the United States, but to all of NATO, saying, you know what? I already gave you my warning. This was my warning strike. I fired this nuclear capable missile into Ukraine, with regular warheads, not nuclear warheads, but it is nuclear capable. This is what I'm capable of doing. It's really no different than launching the ICBM that everybody was so upset about. It's just worse, because there's a Patriot defense system can at least shoot down some missiles. There is nothing that can shoot down this missile, allegedly. Good morning, Dottie. Yeah, exactly. Who has the biggest toys? Jay, there are so many capabilities in defense that the public does not know about. This is true. Allison, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ryan. And I don't know if I've missed anyone, but good morning, Tammy and Jerry Hoover. Yes, we don't know about everything that obviously is out there. That we have spies that learn about Russian technology. They have spies that learn about our technology, and of course, it is who has the biggest toys. We're always trying to one up and match what everybody else has. And I don't know. I've heard a lot of reports. A lot of people really seem very worried about this Oreshnik missile. And it really makes me think that maybe we truly do not. Russia claims we don't have the capability of tracking it by radar or somehow taking it out of the sky before it hit. We don't have any way to do that. Whether that's true, I don't know. We will certainly probably find out, unfortunately. Jay says, when you hear about something new, that means we already have something better, typically, but not always. Because, Jay, we haven't, unfortunately, under the Biden administration, we haven't exactly been putting a lot of money into our defense of our country. We haven't really been building a lot of new weapons. And not to mention the fact that during the COVID times, we were at a shortage. Remember that when we were at that shortage where we didn't have the materials to build new weapons. And typically the community out there, that really the watchdogs of the military complex, they usually have a really good idea of what each side has. And I obviously don't know, but we're going to certainly see how it plays out. And Dottie says to Jay, you have a lot of faith. Jay has a lot of faith. Unfortunately, Jay, I think it's unwarranted faith. I think that Russia is far ahead of us, as is China, because we haven't focused on our military. We haven't done that. Trump, of course, when he had his 4 years in term in office, he did everything he could to prepare our military for a wartime scenario. Even though he created peace, he made sure we were ready. But COVID hit, of course, we had a shortage of rare earth minerals. We weren't able to continue building new technology during that time. The Biden administration, they're all they're worried about is getting rid of conservatives in the military. That's their only objective. Is stocking Ukraine with everything they possibly can. All of the aid going to Ukraine. That's their number one priority, to protect their assets in Ukraine. And I don't even think building up our military or being ready for a wartime situation has even been on their agenda at all. It's really a sad state, I believe, that our military is in. I really do. And yes, Jay, I know we're always working on something. And yes, there's private contractors. I think there's a good reason why Boeing is laying off allegedly 17,000 people. I think we're in a really bad situation. And I wish I had as great of an outlook as Jay does, but unfortunately, I do not. Because if you go into a wartime scenario, what do you need most of? Fuel. You can't get your jets off the ground without a lot of fuel. And I've been hearing for at least the past 3 years, 4 years, that we do not have the fuel stockpiles needed to go into war, that was not a priority of the Biden administration to stockpile that fuel for war. Is it true? I don't know, but that's what I'm at least hearing. There's just a lot going on. And I want to talk about a little bit of this before, of course, Colonel Joe Adams joins us, because it's so incredibly important. I can't wait to get his opinion. He's going to be joining us, of course, at 8 a.m. So this is the Oreshnik to medium range missile again. I don't know what I needed like a day off today on Friday, apparently, because I can't talk. I cannot talk. And of course, yesterday after we left the show, I was doing my best. I had to work, but I was doing my best to kind of keep an eye on what was taking place. Any statements that came from Putin, any statements that came from Zelensky. Of course, Zelensky, the very first thing he did was start his crazy warmongering. And he's a mess. So these are some of the statements from Zelensky. He said, the world must react to this. There is no strong reaction from the world right now. Putin is very sensitive to this. He is testing you, dear partners. He must be stopped. If there is no strong reaction to Russia's actions, it means they see that it is possible. We need to put pressure. We need to force Russia into genuine peace, which is only possible through force. So here we have Zelensky calling for World War III. I mean, he's calling on the rest of the world to start a war to protect his little piece of the planet over here. The people in Ukraine, yes, we have to work to protect them. But Putin also made a statement that he is absolutely going to send more missiles over to Ukraine. He may even send one to Poland to attack a United States Air Force base. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But he also did say that he is going to warn citizens ahead of time. He made a statement yesterday. I'm going to play a little bit of a statement from here in just a moment. But he did make a statement yesterday during his speech. He made several different statements, actually, talking about bringing that this current escalation of the United States and the UK allowing American and British made intermediate missiles and long range missiles in Ukraine. And, obviously they can't operate these missiles. We have to help them operate the missiles. We have to help them with the guidance to strike inside of Russia. And he feels that that brings a global component into the current situation. And that's the first time Russia's really said that this is turning into a global escalation and not just a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. That was extremely important, of course. And Russia, I probably just need to stop the show and start over again one of those days. So Russia, Putin, he said they consider themselves to only use weapons against facilities in countries that allow weapons to be used against Russian facilities. One of those, of course, being our air base in Poland, which we're going to talk about. And then he also said that Russia prefers peace, but he's also ready for the development of events, and there will always be a response. So anytime we, of course, participate in launching attacks against him, he's going to be ready for a response. I'm going to play this quick video here about our military base in Poland, because Putin has made it very clear that because we used our American-made missiles and gave them to Ukraine, you trained Ukraine how to use them, have assisted them in using them, as well, of course, as the UK with the British-made missiles, that he feels that he has the right to potentially attack our military base in Poland. I don't expect that to happen, but I think that if we see any escalation, this might be the first thing they do to bring into the global environment. I don't expect it to happen, but you never know. All right, well, we want to hear them, don't we?
Russia is escalating tensions, threatening to target a newly opened U.S. missile defense base in Poland with advanced weapons. This comes just hours after reportedly launching an intercontinental ballistic missile at Ukraine. Moscow's warning follows the November 13th opening of Aegis Ashore Base in Rzeszkowo, Poland, a NATO missile shield designated to intercept short to intermediate range missiles. Russian Foreign Minister spokesperson Maria Zakharova condemned the base as destabilizing, adding it to a list of priority targets for destruction if necessary. Poland, however, emphasized that the base is purely defensive and does not house nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Ukraine reported that Russia launched an intercontinental ballistic missile from Astrakhan on Thursday, targeting the city of Dnipro. This missile launch comes amid heightened tensions after Ukraine struck targets inside Russia using U.S.-supplied missiles earlier this week. Moscow warned such actions could escalate into World War III.
Again, from the New York Post, will it escalate to World War III? A lot of people are saying it already has. We're just going to have to wait and see how things, of course, play out. We had several different Politico considered, wrote an article talking about World War III. I'll give you some excerpts from that article. We have, of course, Zelensky, one of his lead military analysts said, yes, we are in the midst of World War III. Are we? I don't think we're ready to say that yet, but I will tell you that Ukraine, they're going to establish a NATO meeting. It's going to take place on November 26th, where they're going to talk about Ukraine and the situation with Russia. NATO's going to get together and decide, I guess, where we go from there. I think we have a very good idea, because yesterday, as I said, I read you some different articles that were taking place around the world, and we talked about the potential mobilization of 800,000. That's a lot. 800,000 NATO troops, which Germany is calling for. We have allegedly 20 Ukrainian special forces who came to the United States and trained on how to collect samples from the aftermath of a nuclear strike. Is that just something, did they train these special forces because they expect it to escalate to a nuclear situation, or did they train them just in case it happens? We'll have to leave that up to speculation, of course. And Maria Zakharova, I thought this was really funny. She is, of course, the spokesperson for Russia. She said not to pay any attention to Zelensky because he's coked out of his mind. I was absolutely shocked she said that, and it's probably true. It's probably true. And then, of course, what I thought also was interesting is we talk a lot about the money going over to Russia. Well, Poland's former labor administration secretary, Peter Kupa, he stated that 30 to 50% of all aid that has gone into Ukraine has disappeared. They don't know where it is. They can't account for it. Think about that. We just the United States, we sent over what $183 billion in aid, not just cash, some cash, but weapons, artillery, etc. And it's gone. It's disappeared. 30 to 50% is gone. That's a really big number, isn't it? And so I thought that was an interesting fact to be spoken about. So obviously, there's just a lot of very interesting things taking place. And of course, Zelensky, he's trying to bargain with Donald Trump. He allegedly has reached out to the Trump administration, what will be the Trump administration, and he said that Ukraine has a lot of mineral deposits, that their country is wealthy with minerals. And so he would like to bargain with the Trump administration and allow Trump, if they handle the situation against Russia and they don't allow Russia to take any part of Ukraine's land, and of course we'd have to do that with force, there's no other way around that, then we will have access to the minerals in Ukraine. I cannot imagine Trump falling for that. That's for sure. I don't see that happening at all. And so that's something to think about. Good morning, Rob. Jay says, in their pockets. And Jay, the greatest deterrent to nuclear weapons is rich and powerful. People can't remain that way if they are annihilated in a nuclear counterstrike. Also true. Allison, we are supplying to many other countries with weapons instead of preparing the U.S. military. It is unfortunate that we are so worried about everyone else and not worried at all about ourselves. And that's something that Colonel Joe Adams, of course, can speak to as well when he joins us at 8 a.m. is just that. How prepared are we? If we were to enter into a war today, are we prepared? Probably not. Probably not. But we'll see. And of course, this is the person running our country. Did you guys see these videos where the Celtics were at the White House and Joe Biden, he leaned back, and not only did he not know what team they were, but after this, and this is not in the clip I'm going to show you, but afterwards, he revealed his secret code name, his secret service name is apparently Celtic. And he told everybody watching. I mean, that's something that you're not supposed to talk about. And the story goes is that as soon as this over, and I think they've wiped a lot of that feed out where no one can see it, but he allegedly went on and started talking about how, hey, telling the entire audience, the entire live feed that, hey, did you know that my secret code name, my secret service code name is Celtic because I'm Irish? I mean, this guy, I don't know what's going to happen, but the leadership under this guy is not good.
2024 NBA champions, the Bulls. You're Celtics, right?
So he didn't even know. He started to say the Bulls, and then he's like, oh, you're the Celtics, right? This guy, he has no idea where he's at or what he's doing. Isn't that funny? What is happening to our country? How did this happen to us? How is this guy our leader? I do not get it. So he has the entire basketball team there to honor them. He calls them the Bulls. And he turns around and says, oh, are you the Celtics? And the guys are like, yeah. It's such a sham, and we should be so much more. We shouldn't laugh. We should actually be very angry and upset about this. Because here this man is, allegedly our president, that somehow got $20 million or 20 million more votes than Donald Trump did in 2020, which we know cannot possibly be true. And the demographics just don't work out that way. We don't even have the registered voters that they claim that he has the votes for. And yes, Allison, it's funny and sad at the same time. And he does act like a little child. And Dottie, many of you know when a person reaches that stage where they have dementia or a different types of aging process, they do become very childlike. And I believe that's exactly what has happened with Biden. He has that childlike quality that happens when somebody reaches that point in either age or cognitive ability. And they very much do act childlike. And we see that in him. And that's part of what makes it so sad. But what I hate is the sham they played on the American people, that they told us that this guy had more votes than Donald Trump. They stole the election from us. And then they try to tell us and make us believe, gaslight us to think that this man is actually creating legislature, that he's creating policy, that these executive orders he wrote, and that he's meeting these world leaders. When we're not stupid. We can see it with our own eyes. We can watch videos just like these, and we can see the reactions of the people around him. So when I see these videos of Biden, I'm watching all the people around him, and you see them laugh and snicker, and you can see that they're making comments to other people. And those people walk away from that experience thinking, okay, now I've seen the sham with my own eyes. Now I know that this is all fake. It's all a facade. This man is not running a daycare. He's not running a country. He can't even manage his own probably meal preparation each day. This guy has no idea what's going on. And yet he is supposed to be the president of the United States, the most powerful leader in the country and in the world. And we know that's not true. It's just simply not true. And how do we expect, with all of this taking place, that decisions are going to be made, that policy is going to be followed? There's no congressional approval for us to get involved with Ukraine and them launching long-range missiles into Russia. And Putin, he's just sitting back, as I'm sure our other world leaders, sitting back thinking, what has happened to America? What is going on? But the thing is, they all know. They all know about the deep state. They all know about the shadow government. They all know who really runs this country. And so does all of Congress. And that's who we should also be angry with. All of Congress, all of them, they all know what's going on. They all see Biden. They all interact with him. They all know he's not running anything. And they all know his cognitive ability is heavily diminished. However, they put up with the sham, don't they? They don't talk out. Look what happened to Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi did speak out. Remember, I played this video for her. I put it on my Facebook page, and she did speak out. And guess what happened? They put her on the Quiet Skies fly list, where now every time she flies, a marshal has to fly with her to protect the rest of the people from her. And I'm sure that that's exactly why Trump made sure he had a position for her. And we're just the laughing stock of the world. And now that we're in a very serious situation where we could potentially be entering into World War III, if we're not technically we already have. And it's soon going to be public that we already have entered into World War III. People aren't going to have any option but to talk about it, because this is not going to go away. It is going to continue to escalate. And Putin keeps giving us warnings. And in his speech yesterday, one of the things he said is that I really wish the Americans would have listened to us months ago. None of this would have happened if they would have listened to us months ago, but they're still not listening. And we're not. We are still not listening. This is Putin's last warning, is how I feel. Him launching the missile yesterday, the Oreshnik, what in the world is, why I can't remember anything today. Him launching the missile yesterday, I really do think is his last warning to the United States and to the world, to say, okay, I have launched a nuclear capable missile into Ukraine. I told you I would do this, and now I have done it. And I didn't load it with a nuclear warhead. I loaded it with regular warheads just to prove a point. And I do think he has proven his point. But is anybody noticing? Is anyone paying attention? Is anyone doing absolutely anything about it? Allison, Trump's new pick for AG Pam Bondi is a great pick. Yes. And after we talk to Colonel Joe Adams today, we are definitely going to get to that. Good morning, Cindy. You're late. You know what? You have missed nothing. I'm a mess today on a Friday. I slept for about 1 hour last night, and I can't even pronounce words or think of string a clear sentence together. I'm probably worse than Biden today with my crazy sleep patterns. But I think we're just going to have to pay attention and see what happens. I'm kind of waiting to see the fallout of other countries and what they think. Because as we move towards further escalation, because we're not going to back down. We talked about this yesterday. I'm sure Colonel Joe Adams will talk about it again. We're not going to back down. This situation, we've put too much money into Ukraine. All of the NATO countries have put too much money into Ukraine. We can't just say, okay, that's it. Trump's going to come in. He's going to create peace. He's going to give Russia 20% of Ukraine, allow the rest of Ukraine to join NATO. That's not going to be okay with these people who have bankrupted their countries to support Ukraine. They're never going to allow Donald Trump to make that decision. Yes, Donald Trump is going to do his best to make peace, but they don't want that. They do not want peace. No question about it. And, even Politico, I was kind of surprised because Politico usually is pretty good about staying out of things. And I was very surprised to read this article in Politico this morning. I'm going to read some excerpts of this to you because it surprised me. I don't know if it'll surprise you or not. The title is World War III has officially begun, according to, of course, Ukraine's ex-top general, who, of course, that doesn't weigh heavily on us, but I think the article does. And it goes on to say, Ukraine's ex-top general may not be wrong. Kinetic World War III may have begun. But if this nightmare ignites into a full inferno, the blame lies not with Kiev, but with its masters in D.C. And of course, in London, who have spent years engineering these current conditions. It says the latest round of escalation tells the tale. The U.S. authorizes ATACMS, the U.K. follows suit with its Storm Shadows, and Russia retaliates with the Oreshnik, a hypersonic ballistic missile, leveling an industrial zone in I'm not going to pronounce it. While Oreshnik wasn't nuclear tipped, the message was clear. You push, we'll push harder. What's unfolding is a deliberate script, albeit one written in desperation, authored by the West, with Europe and Ukraine cast as sacrificial lambs. Isn't that true? When faced with cosmic humiliation, total defeat in Ukraine, the deep state, whoever thought Politico would talk about the deep state goes full Dr. Strangelove. And then guess what? There's no NATO. A grotesque parody of a protection racket. That is NATO. A Tony Soprano wannabe demanding protection fees from its shopkeepers while offering nothing in return but manufactured fear and unnecessary wars. But here's the difference. Even Tony had a self-awareness to admit the best was behind him. And NATO, I'm speaking to you. And its American godfather cling to the illusion of invincibility, refusing to acknowledge the reality that the global majority, led by a resurgent Russia, is no longer buying their extortion and fraud. I thought that was so wild, by Politico. And it goes on to say Russia knows this, as does the U.S. Only one nation has ever used nuclear weapons, the United States, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bluff works great on regimes like Saddam's Iraq or Gaddafi's Libya or CIA asset turned enemy, drug dealer Noriega in Panama, but the bluff doesn't work on nuclear superpowers like Russia. What's unfolding is the beginning of the end for NATO's extortion empire. The global majority sees the racket for what it is, a failing enterprise reliant on fear, coercion, fraud, and lies. That coming from Politico. I can't believe, I really couldn't believe it when I read it. Good morning, Bill. When I read that, I couldn't believe that Politico published an article talking that way about NATO and mentioned the deep state. Has that ever happened in the history of the country that Politico or any major publication like Politico has come out and said these types of things? I was really surprised. And they've got it exactly right on. They are 100% correct. And I would have never thought it would come from them. And I don't know where we go from there. what's going to happen with NATO. I mean, we know, of course, that Donald Trump wants to eliminate NATO. We know that. And I know that NATO and NATO countries fear exactly what Donald Trump might do. How far are they willing to go to stop him from disbanding NATO, from disbanding the UN, from making peace between Russia and Ukraine, which he's already said he's going to do, to making peace between Israel and the Gaza region, which he's already said he's going to do. And I certainly think he's capable of doing so. That's not what they want. There's no money in peace. No money in peace. There's only money in war. So I'm not really sure where that's going to go. And Colonel Joe Adams should be joining us here any moment. And looking forward to hearing from him. I want to make sure I don't see him on yet. He's usually here with us. And so when we talk to Colonel Joe Adams again, we're going to be going over some of these things. But in the meantime, I want to show you what's heading our way, because guess what? Yes, Trump wants to talk about deportations, mass deportations, which of course are going to fight every step of the way. But in the meantime, we have these folks marching towards our southern border.
Bueno, el que tenga algún antecedente policial, bueno, que lo revisen. Los que estamos limpios vamos a trabajar, a más bien a darle la mano a Estados Unidos para de esta manera poder enviar para Venezuela, pero vamos a convertir en trabajadores de ellos, que vamos a producir estando dentro de Estados Unidos.
Bueno, el sentirle el miedo es que nos deporten, porque nosotros venimos como para buscar una mejora, un mejor futuro, digámoslo así, porque en el país donde estamos, o sea, está muy crisis y fuerte la situación allá.
Creo que siempre hay juegos geopolíticos donde sea. Y creo que se van a sentar los dos. A todos les conviene los inmigrantes de cualquier parte del mundo, porque son personas que básicamente vienen a trabajar. Otras vienen a hacer fechorías, pero la mayoría viene a trabajar. Y pienso que los inmigrantes son...
Well, ahead of Donald Trump, we have another invasion taking place. Thousands of people marching up and towards our southern border. There's a lot more to that video that I'm not going to get into, but hopefully that you saw what is happening. We have thousands of people heading towards our southern border, trying to come into our country prior to an inauguration, which is crazy to me. If we're talking about mass deportations, why are we allowing more people in? Shouldn't they have already put the floodgates up and say, okay, that's just more taxpayer money to deport these people? That's just more work for ICE and our border agents. But yet, why? I don't understand why these people are coming here when they know they're going to turn around and of course, be deported here in the very near future. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that more after we talk to Colonel Joe Adams. But first, I see Joe Adams waiting in the wings, so we're going to get him on. Hopefully, the way my morning's going, hopefully we're going to get him on and everything's going to go okay. I'm not too confident in everything today, outside of being very happy that it's...
Yep.
Hey, Deanna.
Hi, Joe. Can you hear us?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
I was better yesterday.
So happy to have you here. Of course, Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. And yes, I think yesterday was a much better day than today. How are you feeling today?
When I got up at 0500 this morning, I was walking through the house, and I asked myself, what is your problem today? And there was this like cloud around me, and I okay, so why am I so disturbed? And then I realized why I was disturbed, and it was because of a meeting last night at 10 o'clock, an emergency meeting I was called into by the think tank that I belong to, and the 7 team leaders of the think tank got on the phone, and we were discussing the events since Wednesday that's happened in Ukraine and Russia. And I guess that's why I'm not in a good mood today. I'm a very, very concerned. And people say, well, should we worry about something? And I say, not until I get concerned. And I'm concerned. We're looking, and the topic was the question that was set out was World War III question mark. So people elaborated on World War III. I didn't say a word. And they asked my opinion. I said, I'm listening. I said, what does that mean, World War III? Concept, what? And they said, well, I said, let's rephrase the question to the group about the possibilities or imminent World War III. Again, I abstain from giving a comment. What's disturbing is, now these are incredibly intelligent and intelligence analysts, okay? This is their life, their career. And 3 of the other 6 people said, War III is imminent. It's going to happen. The other 3 said, prepare in case of World War III. So, and they kept saying, well, Colonel, what's your opinion? I said, I don't have an opinion yet. But you're telling me that half the group, the first 6, not me, are saying we're going to World War III. And what does that mean? So, people who, incredibly intelligent people, trained people, experienced people, all combat veterans, one way or the other, say that we're going to World War III. And the consensus of the final the half hour of the meeting was, they asked me to tell the public and my Washington Guard to prepare for America being involved in World War III. And that's why I'm not too enthusiastic this morning.
Colonel Adams, I agree. I don't know if you were listening to the show before you came on, but I've been having a really tough time this morning getting through the show. And that is because, you know what? Because my mind is not here. My mind is not here with the show. My mind is on what is getting ready to unfold. And I hate to, one of the first things I said when I came on the show this morning is I don't want to fearmonger. I don't want people place them in a state of panic. But at the same time, I'm like, yes, you should be panicking. We should be fearful because we're getting ready to head into something that I think we've never seen before in our country. But it's like, I'm so torn between, do I tell people what I really think is going to happen, or do I try to keep people calm and collected and not, it's been a really rough morning for me too, because I think we know what's coming. I don't see any avoidance of it at all. But do you tell people, or do you try to promote peace? It's like, what do you do?
Well, we got into some of that also. The biggest problem in the United States with people understanding what is about to happen is the fact that we've never been invaded before.
That's right.
All of the countries in Europe have now told their communities, their populace, and the military, we're going to World War III. Not maybe or prepare. No, it's on. It's just a matter of days or weeks, probably days, could be hours. So the people in Europe understand what World War means. Their parents, their grandparents have all passed down the messages. They're studying the history about what happened in World War II. So we have never been in a more precarious situation in this country as we are today since before World War II. Something just hit me. Do you know how we got involved in World War II? Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, we're going to sit this one out. And of course, England's getting pounded. England's asking for help. And the president of the United States says, no, we're not getting involved. I don't know if people understand what was the thing that got us into World War II. We weren't invaded, we weren't bombed. It was a letter that our intelligence services intercepted between Adolf Hitler and the president of Mexico, asking Mexico to align with the Axis powers and in Germany to go against the United States. And then when Franklin Delano Roosevelt found that out, that's how we got in World War II. Anyway, very precarious times. I brought up something that no one has brought up, because as my wife says, I live in a different world up here. How many North Korean troops are over there now, Tabitha? What was the final total?
Well, I believe there's about 10,000 right now on the front lines with a goal of bringing 100,000 over. Now, some people say that 100,000 is already there. So it just depends on who you listen to. Are they there or are they on their way? But in Colonel Adams, Lori just asked on the comment line, what sides will it be? Russia versus everyone else, or who will be with Russia? Well, let me tell you something, Lori. It will be everyone with Russia. Everyone but NATO countries. It will be NATO against BRICS. And I hate to say it, but China, Russia, these are very formidable countries. I don't know that NATO could stand up to them in our current state of non-preparation. What do you think about that, Colonel Adams? Are we prepared?
No. Understand this. If World War III is declared, the United States is going to take a hit one way or the other. Now, Russia cannot reach the West Coast as we know it, but North Korea can. Now, if the Biden administration understands that, well, first of all, it was the consensus of the group last night that the White House wants us.
Yes.
Want World War III.
Yes.
We're going to get hit. What would happen if those missiles that we supplied to the Ukrainians target the North Korean troops and they're hit? What will be the little rocket man's reaction to that? West Coast.
I think we know.
Hey, but no one's thought about this. The reason those North Korean troops are over there for a reason. One, to show unity with Russia. And secondly is they could be the cannon fodder necessary to trip this whole thing. Because if North Korea starts launching missiles against the West Coast, the United States, Putin will launch against the East Coast in central United States.
Oh, absolutely.
We are on the threshold of World War III, and the door's open.
It is. It is open. We have
a month ago we were there, but the door was closed. The door just got opened. So
not only mention, but Colonel Adams, also and I know you're probably already thinking this, but not only do we have to worry about those forces, Putin just met, as a matter of fact, with the president of Mexico last week, or maybe earlier this week. So there's already talks going on between Russia and Mexico, which of course is a huge red flag. But also, not only do we have to worry about all of these countries outside of the United States, we have to worry about all of their operatives who are already here in our country. We already know they have missiles, heat-guided missiles, in our country they've smuggled over the border. We already know they have dirty bombs here in the United States. I mean, what do you think can happen from within?
Yeah, chaos. But I'm really surprised that, well, only because of the West's pressure on Britain. Britain should have done what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did before World War II. They should have said, we're going to set this out. But the West, the Biden administration, shouldn't even say Biden administration, the administration made Great Britain come forward and make that statement. Now, the missiles that were set over to Ukraine from Great Britain, for the most part, were not made by the British, they were made by Americans. So we got Great Britain to go forward and say, oh yeah, we're into this, we're going to send you weapons, we're with NATO. Right now, the populace of Great Britain is not very happy with that. They should have waited a while. I would have, but I know the White House got them involved. Mexico, that's a whole other issue. Now, Trump has told the Mexican president that she will stop any of the illegals mass migration into this country, the convoys of people, and agreed to it, and did stop them. I don't know how many thousands are in that group heading towards the United States. The Biden administration, at the same time this week, has now implemented with DHS, the head of DHS, certain criteria with the illegals in this country, and there's thousands of these people that agree to wear a ankle bracelet, a detector, right? So by wearing that bracelet, they can be located, thousands, but they have to call in. So they're issuing a new app for those people wearing the ankle bracelet, where they can check in to ICE before they are going to an airport and all those things. When the illegals were here with the bracelet, they had to check into ICE in person. Now they don't have to. The interesting thing is this app that the White House is issuing to all the illegals to check in, which makes them legal status here, is as of now, they've come up with a glitch in the app. And the glitch is they can check in any place to ICE saying, we're here, we're doing this, whatever. But the app has got a glitch in it to where ICE cannot tell where that message was sent from.
Oh, okay.
A glitch my ass, okay? That was implemented.
Right.
So even though Trump has said mass deportation, this commander-in-chief, who's currently still in power, was doing everything they can and conspiring with DHS, Mayorkas, to set up in fact, I was surprised that the New York Post did an article on this, that they are planning and instituting certain things and roadblocks and hurdles to make Donald Trump's presidency more difficult to deport illegal aliens.
Oh, of course.
And I wish President Trump hadn't said this. He said that day one mass deportation, right? And how's he going to do that? And we've talked about this. What's that look like? Well, then he says, and I hate this. He said, because I'm going to declare a national emergency. Well, don't give the bad guys ideas. It wouldn't surprise me if Biden issues a national emergency, okay? And they don't need Congress for that. They can send in troops, whatever they want to do. A national emergency is much different. It's totally presidential power, and nobody can stop that. There's a long way till Trump's inaugurated, and we've got a lot of problems in front of us. And one of them, and then the people that I work with, and I have not said this, the people I work with all believe that the White House wants World War III before the inauguration.
Of course they do. you know what I'm hearing, Joe, is they want it before Christmas. Obviously the inauguration coming up, but everything's finalized on January 20th, but it has been very clear that they want it before Christmas. And that means, just like you said, things are escalating very, very quickly, very quickly. We had Russia yesterday, of course, launching the Oreshnik missile, which also, I don't know why I can't say that missile's name, but it launched that missile, who allegedly it cannot be tracked by radar. Allegedly it cannot be intercepted. They claim that no country has the ability to intercept that particular missile. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what we're told. That makes it very fearful. This morning they're launching Iskander missiles into Ukraine. It is continuing to escalate. And yesterday, of course, Putin made that statement that now he has always targeted military facilities in the past, but now he has decided that he's also going to start attacking infrastructure that is not military related, because he said that's what we are doing to him, and everything we do, he gives it right back to us. We launched an attack that apparently took out some of his infrastructure that was not military related, so he's going to do the same thing. We just keep stepping it up. Where does the escalation end?
Well, those missiles can be intercepted. The reason they're not radar detected because they fly so low, but it would take fighter aircraft, Super Hornets and F-35, things like that, to pick them up on their ground radar and move them and can destroy them. But they don't have that facilities. Russia has it, but Ukraine and the rest of them don't have it.
And they're very fast. I mean, they travel at Mach 10 speeds, which is insane.
Yeah, they're subsonic. Yeah, but so are the aircraft too, but they don't have the aircraft to do it. So
right.
And Putin knows that. Of course he does. He's sending a message. That's the way it's going to be. But so the White House policy right now is their agenda is everything they can do to hurt Donald Trump. They're doing it, and there's more to come. That's very sad.
It is sad, because I think we all know that they will do anything they can to hold on to power to make sure that Donald Trump is never inaugurated. And obviously, since they failed at everything else, 3 different assassination attempts, they failed at everything else. The only option left is to go into a state of war where they can declare an emergency and then hold on to power, because there is no transition of power under a wartime situation.
So if Biden would declare a national emergency, because if we're attacked, which is, it's hard to believe that the president of the United States is not my president. He might be somebody else's, not mine. The amazing thing is, almost 3/4% of the population of the United States sent a message to the White House of why he wasn't elected. They're not happy with his policies. And again, every policy he puts forward hurts us. He's done nothing to help the United States in almost 4 years now. And he continues to hurt us. And now he's trying to hurt the next generation of the White House. I mean, these people, and you know who I'm talking about, these people should be tried by a military tribunal, convicted, and sentenced accordingly. And the ones who they don't sentence to the firing squad should be deported. The problem is
they're probably fearful that will happen.
That's why they have to maintain power. They're all paranoid because they know they're dirty. The one thing that's common in history is the fact, and we've mentioned this before, all great nations and societies throughout history were not defeated by other militaries, other than the Greeks, of course, and that was terrain. They've all committed suicide. We are on the verge of committing suicide in this country because of not leaders, they're our elected officials. The only leader in this country is the commander in chief, and we don't really have one. I mean, he's a joke.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So all nations implode and commit suicide, and we're right there. This is horrible. What we're getting ready to get into.
It is.
By the Democrats.
I woke up. What's that, Colonel Adams?
Say again.
Oh, I was saying that I woke up this morning at 3:30 a.m. In a near panic because I'm thinking, okay, we're heading into winter here in the United States, and we know we're very vulnerable in the winter, obviously. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to make sure I have enough wood for the winter in case things go crazy. I need to make sure I'm going through my mind this morning, all these different things I need to do to prepare. Then I'm like, do we even have time to prepare? What do we even prepare for? Because I see things escalating so quickly. Russia has now threatened that they are going, not threatened, probably a promise that they are going to send a missile right into the middle of the parliament building in Kiev. If they do that, that's going to be a very clear message to the entire world, of course. And I see the tit for tat that's going on back and forth, back and forth. And we already know, we don't have to see it play out. We already know that the United States and NATO, we're going to continue escalating because we want to push Russia into war. And eventually, Putin, as much as he's holding his composure and as much patience as he has, as he awaits, of course, Donald Trump to be inaugurated, eventually he has to act. He can't allow his country to be taken advantage of. He can't allow us to just keep attacking him and not do anything about it.
But it's called, we've talked about this before, strategic respect. If you bang your shields long enough and don't do anything, people disrespect you. Putin has to maintain strategic respect. You and I are U.S. citizens, myself, former military. I respect Putin because I know his capabilities. And people don't, we've got a commander-in-chief who doesn't know what day it is. Xi Jinping's on the top of his game. The Rocket Man, puppet of China, and got Putin, former head of the KGB, who's a military genius strategist. And so everything that Putin does is necessary for his survival. And the Americans are using that, or the White House is, to use that against us. And I firmly believe that the White House is engaging because they want to bring on World War III and blame it on Putin. But in fact, it's them. We're Absolutely. In Ukraine because of the West, not because of what NATO wanted, because they're scared of Putin, and they have a right to be. Because when Putin starts pushing triggers, all of the European countries now are putting troops on the border.
Yes.
Well, good. So if they think that Russia's going to invade their countries with troops, they're wrong. Putin's going to start pushing buttons.
That's exactly 100% correct. That's all he needs to do is push buttons. I think yesterday, him sending that Oreshnik missile over into Ukraine, obviously nuclear capable missile. He didn't have nuclear warheads on it, but it does hold up to 6 warheads, and obviously that could be obviously it's meant to carry nuclear weapons. There's no reason for him to use that missile outside of a nuclear war. We know that Ukraine they are preparing for a nuclear war. Ukraine is preparing, and we're preparing them for it. Why would we prepare a country for a nuclear war if that's not going to happen? It doesn't make sense. I really think that was Putin's one warning shot. He has stated very clearly yesterday, Americans, you should have listened to me months ago. I hope you're listening now. I really think that whatever happens next is going to be the big one. I really do. I hate to say this, Joe. 2 things I'm going to say that I was trying not to say today, and I think I've had a pretty bad show because I haven't said it. I think that Putin is absolutely going to use a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine, probably sooner rather than later. I think there's about 100% certainty of that. And number 2, when World War III starts, we, the United States, are going to lose. We're not going to win this one. And I feel so un-American saying these things. And I've had such a hard, difficult show today because I'm trying not to say what I really think because I feel un-American saying these things, but I believe it to be true. I can't help that I believe it to be true.
Well, how do you think I feel? My entire adult life is helping other countries achieve what we had in America. And it's right here in my lap. This is just horrible. We've been sold out by our government.
Yes.
When I say the federal government hates us and they want us dead, they'll just replace us with an illegal. I'm not joking. It's not funny anymore. It's
No.
These people are insane and they are evil. There's a true evil living in the White House and the Pentagon. Now, the problem is if Donald Trump makes inauguration and takes the office, he can stop all this.
Yes.
And Putin knows it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the White House knows it too. So they're their agenda. You know, they had to pump up the volume when the U.S. population figured out these people are insane. I mean, 3/4 of the population wants immigration is more important to them than the economy, and they sent a message to the White House. Well, they just disregard that. So what? Because they're always saying transparency. Let me tell you about the intelligence industry in politics. There is no total transparency. You never know actually what's going on. If you want a good, if the United States was in the situation of Ukraine with all the destruction, they'd be thinking differently. But there's people out there, you probably even listening to your show, that think I'm crazy. Well, I've been called crazy before.
They probably think I'm crazy too. That's why I was so hesitant to say what I really feel.
Yeah, the crazy club. Yeah. But if I'm so crazy, then why have everything I said has come to this? And after the election and Kamala Harris didn't win, they're in trouble and they know it. So they got to speed up the volume. They thought Kamala Harris would be elected. To look back, they realized, what the hell were we thinking? We did everything wrong, and we continue to do things wrong.
Yes. And they continue to escalate.
Divide, yeah. So what's it gonna? Can you copy me now?
Oh,
okay,
yes.
I'm back. I keep getting this signal sometimes.
On our end, we've heard you and seen you the entire time, so there's no issue.
Right.
No issue at all. I am glad though you're here talking to us today because there's not as many people that can relate to what's going on, and to me it's such a somber morning for me, and obviously it is for you too. I think we're both feeling about the same way. And Joe, Colonel Adams, I'm worried about my friends. I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about what's coming next. I'm worried about all of this happening during the winter. There's so many things going on in my head, and you really can't prepare. I mean, you can prepare to make sure you have heat. You can make sure you have food to eat, but there's only so much preparation you can do. And I worry about the people who aren't taking it seriously, who think this is a situation like it has been in the past, where they'll work it out diplomatically and everything will be fine.
Well, that's the American way, I guess. We hope it'll work itself out. The only way this is going to work itself out is if Donald Trump takes office. And I still keep saying they got to kill him. They got to kill him. Somebody said yesterday, will he do the walk down Pennsylvania Avenue? No. If he does, it'll be in the Beast, which is like third world. I mean, our president can't even walk down Pennsylvania Avenue now. And that's tragedy. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but Donald Trump's not in that office yet. And the office in power now is doing everything to prevent that. And if they have to provoke World War III to keep him from being inaugurated, they're going to do it.
They are. Do you think, Colonel Adams, that Putin, obviously he knows we're trying to bait him into making that first launch? Because like you said, it's going to be about pushing buttons. It's not going to be about boots on the ground. He knows we're trying to bait him. Do you think that he can keep his resolve until a Trump inauguration, or are we going to escalate things to such a degree to where, like you said, the integrity of his military stance? What do you expect to happen?
Putin right now is buying time for the inauguration, and that's why I don't think that he'll launch nuclear warheads until he's sure that if Donald Trump is not inaugurated and become president, Putin's going to push the button. But right now, the threat of nuclear war, unless and the Ukrainian military, even in the Russian military, what if a rogue general gets a hold of a warhead and launches one unauthorized, it's on. Whatever happens, Putin's responsible. And I want to, I don't like to correct you, Tabitha, but people need to get away from that Putin's being baited. No.
The reason why I say that, and you probably already know this, is, and by baited, I mean that we are poking him. We keep escalating and trying to lure him into fighting back and into pushing that button first, is what I mean. But something I want to throw in, because I read this early this morning, and this could be the escalation that pushes him over the edge, is the Biden administration is wanting to give back nuclear weapons to Ukraine. They want to arm Ukraine with nuclear weapons because they think that if they arm Ukraine with nuclear weapons, then that will keep Putin in line. And so that's something that's being thrown around today, because obviously we took their nuclear weapons away, allegedly, and now we want to give them back. And if we give Ukraine nuclear weapons, that's going to be, I think, the escalation needed for Putin to say, okay, this is it. I can't take anymore. I can't wait for an inauguration.
No, that actually what they're doing is, and NATO knows this, they want to reestablish nuclear weapons in Ukraine for a counterstrike. It won't be an aggressive movement unless a rogue general gets a hold of it. They're positioning themselves to counterstrike Putin when he pushes the button. That's what that's about.
Right, but how do you think Putin's going to react if we start moving nuclear weapons into Ukraine? I mean, I would think that would, you know how he is. He doesn't like anything going on along his border. He certainly doesn't trust Ukraine or Zelensky. Could that push him over the edge, just knowing that we've giving Zelensky nuclear weapons?
Well, if they put nuclear weapons back in Ukraine, then they just put a bullseye on the United States of America. That's going to be his response. And trying to figure out Putin from day to day, forget it.
Right.
Man, military strategist genius.
Yes.
That's what you're up against. Just when you think you know everything, just when you think you know all the answers to Putin, he changes the question. So don't screw with Putin. I remember the infamous picture of Donald Trump and Putin shaking hands.
Yes, I do too. Yeah.
Shaking hands. We went from shaking hands to now North Korea launching troops in Russia and Russia being bombed by our munitions, and negotiations are over. I mean, we are that close to war. We'll probably look back and think, were we at war anyway? It just wasn't declared yet. A war is not a war until it's declared. Remember that little police action they had called in Korea? War is war, covert or overt. We're already at war. We just haven't declared a war. That's all.
Well, exactly. And I feel like Putin almost did declare war yesterday, because he said that this has now taken on a global escalation versus a local between just him, of course, himself and Ukraine. He said now this is global. Now, he didn't, of course, use the word war or World War III, but he did mention the word global, which I think adds a lot to it. I worry about a war, and Colonel Adams, I think we've all talked about this for a long time, that this was eventually going to happen. Eventually, it was always going to be NATO against BRICS. We didn't know when, but when you have two large entities vying for power, and we have BRICS who's taking over the GDP, taking over the world's population, and of course causing the US dollar to fall, and us falling from our position, of course, as the world superpower, we were always going to end up in a war, I think. But I didn't really expect it to be so quickly.
Well, it's been brewing. This thing's been brewing for a long time. We have never had such a corrupt White House. These people are totally corrupt. They'll do anything to maintain that power. If it means provoking and poking the bear and going to war, we're going to do it. So you can't prepare until you accept the facts. So whatever you're doing with your families, you need to do it. Prepare. Preparing for a nuclear attack, you know my opinion. You'll just, what did I say the other day? Survivors of a nuclear war envy the dead.
Right.
So all you can do is.
That's true.
Conventional warfare was one thing. Nuclear warfare everybody loses. Hey, I got to run. I've got an appointment, and so thanks for having me on Friday. I know I'm the bearer of bad news all the time, but you got to face the facts. So
no question about it. And thank you, Colonel Adams, for joining us. It's Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. You can reach out to Colonel Adams at thewashingtonguard.com, and of course, patriots at washingtonguard.com if you want to email. Thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate your insights.
God help America.
We'll be keeping in touch, Joe. Have a good day. Try to have a good day. Well, as you can see, Colonel Adams shares my somber tone this morning. I really have had a really difficult show this morning because there's so much on my mind. And I woke up, like I said, at 3:30 this morning looking for the latest news, like what's happening, what is Russia up to, what's Ukraine up to. And I didn't intend to spend most of the show today talking about just that, but I don't see a peaceful end to this. I've tried to work it out in my head 1,000 different ways. And again, I don't want to come into a show and be like all grim, sad news, but it's like my brain is not here today with the show, as you guys can probably tell, because I'm in the back of my head. I'm thinking of all the things that are going to happen, all the things we need to be prepared for, and that's the key word is preparation, to be prepared. We're heading into winter, in much of the United States. And here in the United States, you think, well, what can we expect to happen out of this? What I think can expect to happen is power outages, internet outages, cell phone outages, potentially being isolated at your home or isolated in your vehicle. And so for me, those are the things you prepare for. Like we talked about yesterday with Colonel Adams, you cannot prepare for a nuclear war. You just cannot. You can get some tape and tape your windows up. You can have food, down in your basement unless you have a bomb shelter. And that's not even reasonable. I mean, seriously, I wouldn't even want to sit in a bomb shelter for the next however many years until you could reemerge. I'd probably lose my mind and unalive myself during that time. I don't know how to prepare outside of preparing for yourself at your home, for you and your family, for your community. There is no other way to prepare. You have to prepare that you may not have power for weeks to months. You have to prepare you may not have cell phone service for weeks to months, or internet service. You have to prepare that you could be stuck inside your home for a long period of time, or you could be forced from your home for a long period of time. Those are the things you need to prepare for. For me personally, I'm going to prepare for the fact that I'm home a lot. I work out, of course, out of the area a lot as well, so I'm going to try to prepare for most, but I'm going to base everything on my home, because I think if I can get my home prepared, then if I'm not home when something happens, I will just have to figure out the best way to make my way home. But at least my home will be the sanctuary that I can strive to get back to. I really don't think or expect any direct strikes into the United States. And Colonel Adams, if he was here, would probably tell me I'm naive for thinking that, because like he said, North Korea does have the capability of reaching the United States. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I think, yes, Allison, you've got that right. Natural disaster, civil unrest, because the problem is that you can prepare wonderfully. You can have your home set up to where it's your sanctuary, no matter what goes on around you. You've got your water, you've got your food, you've got ways to cook. You have maybe a generator or, some type of solar power. You might have everything all lined out, but you know what? Most of the country will not. And you have a lot of people who A, can't afford to be prepared, B, don't even know they should be preparing, and then C, the people who just didn't prepare well enough. And what's going to happen is eventually, one by one, those groups are going to come for you, and they're going to come for what you have. When they run out of food, they're going to come and they want to take your food, and they're going to want your weapons. They're going to want your vehicles or your tools or whatever it is you have that they don't have. And we're going to see looting of stores and pharmacies is potentially what could happen. These are all things that will play out in a wartime scenario. So those are all things, we have to think about. I hope to God And we all need to pray that none of these things happen, that somehow there is peace and none of these things happen. But we have to prepare for the possibility that it certainly could happen. It could happen. And you need to make sure that you are prepared for something to happen. Think about this. I live about an hour and 15 minutes, I guess, from St. Louis City. So let's say that I'm in St. Louis City working, which usually I'm out in South County working or out in Chesterfield or out that way working, typically not in St. Louis City. I might have to, if something crazy happens, I might have to figure out how to get from somewhere in Missouri back to my home. So I have to make sure that I have items with me to survive the weather, to survive a potentially very long walk, maybe a boat ride. I don't know. How do you cross the river? I know I sound probably like an absolute lunatic for thinking about these things, but these are the things you have to play out in your head. Because what if it's not a war? What if it's an earthquake? What if it's a bomb cyclone? I mean, who knows what might actually happen? And Allison says, have a home bag in your vehicle. You may have to wait to walk. Exactly. You may have to walk. There's a lot of things you might have to do. Go out and watch that, that television series called Alone. Go out and watch that. There's a lot of survival tips on that. But, all kidding aside, though, I really do think something serious is playing out. Only because, but I've thought that many times and have been wrong. So I hope I'm wrong again. But I don't see how this ends peacefully, because we have Russia and Putin Putin knows if he doesn't win this war, it's over for him. It is over. They already have, some countries have already issued arrest warrants for him. That was also something that was tossed around yesterday as the warrants issued for his arrest. And he knows that if he doesn't win, that we're going to come in and take him, just like we did Saddam Hussein, and he'll be sentenced to death or put to death, or something will happen. They'll be dragging him through the streets of Ukraine. And that's not a joke. That actually could happen. And he knows this, and he feels that he has to win. And then you have the other side, which is Ukraine. We've spent billions of dollars between us and NATO countries, billions of dollars to protect Ukraine for a lot of different reasons, a lot of them nefarious, and we're not going to lose. So when you have two sides who are not going to lose, two sides who do not willingly are not able to make peace with each other, and then you have Zelensky saying that we have to protect Ukraine by use of force. We have Russia saying, well, if you use force against us, we will return in equal force. And with Russia, if you fight with Russia, you're fighting with China, you're fighting with Iran, you're fighting with all of these different countries, North Korea. All of these countries are band together. China, we won't win. And I hate to say that. I feel un-American saying we won't win, but we won't win this war. If we end up in a war with BRICS countries, we absolutely will not win. We won't, because we have exasperated ourselves. We're not ready for war. So we will not win this one. And what that looks for us, I don't know. How do we emerge from that? I don't know. I don't know how we prevent the Biden administration from creating war with Russia, because it's what they want. It's their number one goal. If they actually do, I know it was being tossed around, if we supply those nuclear weapons, if we took them from Ukraine and for safekeeping, and if we give them back to Ukraine, it's over. I mean, that is it. That will be the last straw. It is over. That's it. Done. And so that's a big problem. And like Colonel Adams said, it's not that I expect Zelensky to fire the first strike of a nuclear weapon. I don't expect that to happen, unless, like Colonel Adams said, it's some rogue general. I don't expect that to happen. But just them possessing nuclear weapons will be enough for Russia to say, that's it. I'm done pressing that button. See you later, Ukraine. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Kevin says, China alone can beat us thanks to this administration. People don't give China enough credit. Yes, they're facing some economical challenges in China, but their military is very strong. And the difference, I think, between our military and theirs is that China, their military is trained very differently than the American military. In America, we value our lives and the lives of our fellow troops. In China, it's kind of an every man for themselves. They're willing and they join battle to die. They will go into battle and die. So, same for a lot of other armies that we might end up facing. Same for a lot of jihadists that are already in our country. And trust me, if we start getting attacked by BRICS, these people are going to come out of the woodwork and just pile on to that attack. So these are all things we need to think about. If anything crazy happens, I expect to be in my home all weekend because I'm working. I've got a lot of work to do from home this weekend. And I will throw on an emergency show to talk about whatever's happening, or I'll be posting it on social media at the very least. I don't know what's going to unfold, but it seems like it's unfolding very quickly. And so we'll just have to keep an eye on things and see where things go. I do worry. I think we all need to start thinking about being prepared. And I hate to say that heading into the holidays, I worry. I have a military age son, a fighting age son. Are they going to draft him? Is there going to be a draft? If we go to war, against BRICS, there certainly will be a draft. They've already been talking about, are they going to draft women? Is it just going to be the men? How are things going to play out? There's so much going on. And I've been watching for updates. I haven't seen any. I do know that Russia has made additional threats today about different areas they plan to launch missiles towards, the parliament building being one. There were a couple of other regions. And I don't know if you guys saw the aftermath of that Oreshnik missile yesterday. It wiped out an area that would probably be about the size of my town. And that was a very big warning to the world that this time it didn't have a nuclear warhead, but next time it could. The devastation was unbelievable. If you go back and look at that, think about that, 6 different warheads on this missile. And it can go up to, again, 5,000 kilometers at Mach 10 speeds. It is absolutely unbelievable. And that's not even the biggest missile that Russia has. They have other much more powerful weapons that they're testing out. So don't think they can't use them. Tara, the draft is my biggest fear. I think it is mine also, Tara. I think especially because I have a son who is within military age. He would certainly be eligible for a draft, and it does worry me. And a lot of my friends have sons, and we all know, look at what's happened between Ukraine and Russia, the number of lives that are lost between Ukraine, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian young men and women have been killed. The same goes for the side of Russia. I have no idea how these governments can live with themselves sending these young men and women into war. I just watched a video last night of a man who he has a medical disability. He has a doctor's letter. He wasn't able to join the military and fight for Ukraine. Well, the government knocked on his door, which is what they're doing, knocking on doors. And they forced this man out of home and his dog, which I thought was kind of funny. They took his dog with them because, trust me, they'll strap his dog up and send him out to war too, because they are, weirdly enough, doing that in Ukraine. And he's being held in a basement. He still had his phone. They at least allowed him that. And they don't care that he has had an injury or that he's, disabled. They're going to send him out to the front lines just like everyone else. And I thought this was odd. Oh, Sandy, your son is 24. I know. And Tara, yet you have two. We all need to be worried. We need to be worried about our families, our children. I hate to say this. I don't want my son fighting in a war for power. That's all this is. You know what? We could all be living in peace if we can get Donald Trump inaugurated. We could be living in peace. The world just wants peace. We just keep fighting. We keep fighting everyone because we want to have all the oil. We want to have all the gold. We want to have all the natural resources. And so we pillage all of these other countries to keep power. And all of these other countries have had enough of us. They are tired of us. And we cannot continue the path that we're on and have peace. It just can't happen. Tara says, can't help but think if this would have happened if we didn't have dementia-addled deep state puppet for POTUS the last 4 years. I don't think it's about Biden necessarily, because he is just a puppet. We know that this is about something so much bigger, in my opinion. This is about the deep state, the situation with the deep state. It's about world power. It's about dominating the entire world. And it's not about, even in my opinion, the president. It's not about Congress. It's definitely not about us, the people. Our lives don't matter at all. We're just cannon fodder for all of these people. The way I see it is that the deep state will never lose. They don't care if they have to risk all of our lives to win. And by losing, I mean against Donald Trump. I don't mean against Russia. I mean against Donald Trump, because you got to think about it in terms of not the nice terms we use here in the United States. Think of us as a different country. And let's say we're Syria or some other Middle Eastern country. Well, we have had the same rulers in power for decades, probably before JFK. And I think JFK was that Trump that got his foot in the door for change. And that's why, of course, we know what happened to JFK because of that, because he wanted to establish peace. He wanted to change these policies of the deep state. And so now we're in the situation where the people have revolted. And you may not feel like you've revolted, but you have. You have risen. You have been part of a coup to unseat the deep state. You don't even realize you were part of a coup, but you are. And this is a historical time. There will be days when there's history books written about what we Americans have done. And that is, we have risen up against the rulers of the deep state. And I don't even call them Democrats. It's not even about Democrats. It is about the regime that has ruled this country for decades and maybe centuries. And we staged a coup because we voted for Donald Trump. And we did what we had to do to cast our votes. And because we have a constitution, because we demand we uphold the Constitution, he's going to be inaugurated. But of course, the deep state, the regime that has controlled this country again for decades, maybe centuries, they don't want to lose power. They'll do anything they can to hold on to power, because they know once they inaugurate Trump, he is going to rewrite legislation to make sure that the deep state never runs things again, that they never have power again. He didn't do enough when he was president before, because they held him up at every step along the way. And that is why this time it's going to be different. And they know it's going to be different because this time we have more power. We control the Senate and the House. And Thune is not going to be able to stand up to us. We're going to finally implement all of the things that Trump wanted to implement the last time. But instead, he had a rogue DOJ, the Department of Justice, came after him for everything. And this time it's different. There is going to be no Department of Justice coming after him. He's actually going to be able to have the freedom to legislate all of these different bills that will keep the deep state from running. So this election is very different than it was in 2020 or what it was in 2016 or any time prior. They are very fearful that they will forever lose power. And I really do think that part of the Ukraine deal is that the deep state runs Ukraine as a sister country to the United States. And I think that's their backup to where if they lose power here, they know they're all going to have to go to Ukraine. Ukraine will be their only safe haven. There will be nowhere else to run. And so I do think they've implemented a lot of things over in Ukraine to make sure that they have control somewhere else, if indeed they are ousted. But I don't think they're going to let us have control. I really don't. I don't think they're going to let us change. And it would, just think of all the changes that would take place. World peace, that's actually a possibility. They don't want world peace. So I could go on about that forever. And most of you probably think I'm crazy, but it is all about world dominance. And they do not want Trump to be president. They do not want that to happen. And they're not going to stop at anything to keep that from happening. Adrian says, and then we have the shadow government to deal with. That's exactly right. They're all back there running the game and they think we're not paying attention, and we are. So there's a lot going on. We're just going to have to kind of wait things out over the weekend. Before we go, I wanted to show this little video to you. Something kind of two things, actually. One, to kind of lighten the mood. The other is kind of a warning as we head into the holiday season for women. The situation with Russia and the rest of the world, it's BRICS against NATO. And if you don't understand BRICS that well, please read up on BRICS. We'll talk about BRICS on Monday. If you've listened to me, on any show, I talk about BRICS pretty often because I've seen this playing out for a very long time now. That is being BRICS against NATO. And BRICS continues to gain more power. They have, I think, 50 something applications into BRICS right now. If we end up in a war, it is going to be the entire world who is sick of RBS coming up against us and NATO. And I'm sorry, but I don't really want to count on NATO to be my ally in a war against BRICS. Pam says, I don't think we would be here every day if we thought you were crazy. I appreciate that, Pam. There are days I come on this show and I feel crazy. I'm like, man, these people probably wondering what in the world I'm talking about. But I really think we're in a historical moment here where we're going to see a huge shift of power when Trump takes office. And nothing will ever be the same again. It's going to be like Trump calls the golden age. Things are going to turn. We're going to reach a new point in our destiny. And we have to hope and pray that it happens, because if it doesn't, we're in a lot of trouble. And I think we all know we're in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to keep updating you guys on the situation with Russia, and over the weekend between Russia and Ukraine. If we do, the United States send nuclear weapons back to Ukraine, that'll definitely be something I'll probably come on and make a little video about, because that will pretty much be the end for us. So we'll talk about that. But in the meantime, I'm going to play this quick video. We don't have a lot of time left to talk about some additional concerns we as women should have, and even some, young men probably. Be very careful around the holidays, because there's a lot of people out there who would love to harm us. So take a quick look at this.
It's a new scam going on for all you women out there. I was stunned by this. They go into malls and they put a piece of paper under your windshield wiper.
Oh, I saw that, yeah. The sex trafficking you're talking
and
about.
it's laced with fentanyl. You think it's a ticket or you think it's a flyer. You
Yes,
just want to get it off your
move it.
car. You touch it with your hands and the fentanyl is absorbed transdermally through your skin. Within seconds, renders you unconscious.
Sex trafficking.
Pulling up in a van, throwing the woman, putting chains on her, and throwing him in the back of the van. That's just happening right now in Florida.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane? It's happening in Florida, but trust me, that can happen anywhere. If you walk out to your vehicle, it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. If you see a piece of paper on your windshield, do not touch it. If you see money laying on your vehicle, near your vehicle, do not touch it. Do not touch anything, because one touch of fentanyl will render you unconscious. And guess what? Who knows where you might wake up or what you'll be doing. Now, generally speaking, they're using this to grab people for, they say, sex trafficking. I don't know how much I believe that really it's more sex trafficking than it is robbery or sexual assault. Unfortunately, the bad guys, it's really sad to say, but the pipeline of victims coming to them is so steady that they don't really need to kidnap people to throw out there on the human trafficking market. And it's sad that there are so many people in our country who are naive, who are victims themselves, and they end up falling into these hands, runaways, in particular, drug addicts, in particular, into the sex trafficking. So, but either way, always watch out. Always make sure, don't touch anything that's on your car. If you see a piece of paper in your car, call the police. If you can find something to remove it, put it in a bag, take it to your police office. Just don't touch it. Do not touch it. So that's one thing. The last thing I want to talk about before we go, because I thought it was so cute and so funny, is in China, there's this little tiny robot. It's the cutest little thing. And in this shop, it's some type of robot shop. There's a little tiny robot that is talking to the other robots, and they say this little robot kidnapped the bigger robots. And it's such a cute little video. Some might think it's scary. I think it's cute. But you see the little robot come around and he talks to the other robots. And the next thing you know, they follow this little robot. And what I read about the story is that this little robot led these big robots out of the building, down the road, and they called it kidnapping, but was leading them away. So take a look at this. I think it's super cute.
回家，回家。还在加班吗？我们不下班。妈，回家吗？我没有家。妈，跟我回家吧，跟我回家。回家吧。好的。 回家。回家。回家。
I think that's the cutest thing. That little robot's name is Irby. And it took these robots, they said it had human like conversations with them. And the robots woke up upon its commands and followed it out of the showroom. And this was some type of robot sales company. And they were leading them off down through the way, as you can see there. I thought that was like the cutest thing. Yeah, I just wanted to throw something halfway good in there before the end. Dottie says, I had a small baggie with a $5 bill under my wiper last summer. Oh my gosh, what did you do with it? That's crazy. And Kevin, yes, you don't see older males being kidnapped. Keep an eye on your women and children. Isn't that the truth? And don't think it can't happen because it's everywhere. And Sandy, yes, it is a sick world we live in. Unfortunately, it is. There's a lot of people out there who want to cause us harm, which is so strange to me that you have to worry. I haven't seen any updates on the case I talked about yesterday with Michelle Branson, who was taken from her home at gunpoint by at least two assailants, taken to multiple ATMs where she, I believe, successfully was able to withdraw money. They took her down into North City, that area down there they call the Ville, where she was shot and killed by her assailants. And I know they recovered her vehicle, and I believe they recovered the yellow F-150. I believe. I know they recovered two different vehicles. I haven't heard any mention about who these people are, if they have any leads, if they've made any arrests. I haven't heard any additional updates. I hope we do have updates. One thing is we have so many cameras in the city of St. Louis, and I know as well as the Clayton area, we need more. It's kind of that fine line between we need more cameras, and yes, that violates your privacy, but at the same time, if it protects other people, me personally, I am willing to have my privacy violated for the safety of others. It's sad to me that we live in a society right now where we need cameras to catch the people after they've murdered a young woman. It's so sad to me. And unfortunately, we don't have enough cameras. We need more. We need many more. Well, that is it for me today. I will keep you guys updated on the situation between Russia and Ukraine. If I hear anything, trust me, I will be right on top of it, either by social media or breaking in with a little bit of a video if it's something really serious. And if you guys hear anything, let me know. I hope you all have a really fantastic weekend. I hope you're all going to take at least a little time out this weekend to make some preparations for things to come. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Please reach out to Colonel Joe Adams. You can do that at WashingtonGuard.com or patriots@thewashingtonguard.com. You can email him, and he would, I'm more than sure, would be happy to invite you out to a muster, send you information about the Washington Guard. If you don't live in the area, I know he'd be happy to direct you to resources about preparation. I understand it's not easy for people to be prepared. People don't have time. You may not have resources, but please, if you can, reach out to your friends and family, people in your community, elderly people, disabled people who may not have the same resources, who may not have the same ability to prepare, who may not even know there's anything to prepare for. And then, it's better to be safe than sorry. And it's better to, especially heading into winter, to make sure that you do have extra supplies on hand, because we really don't know. We don't know what's coming, and it could happen very quickly. So I do hope on top of that, you guys do have hard to have a good weekend after having this kind of talk, isn't it? Which is why I was so hesitant to say all of these things. I do hope you guys have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. I will look forward to seeing you all on Monday morning, if not this week.